The grand ballroom of the Beverly Hilton Hotel shimmered under the weight of anticipation. It was February 11th, 2012, the eve of the Grammy Awards, a night usually dedicated to celebration. But in a quiet, luxurious suite, a different kind of silence had fallen. The air hung heavy, tinged with the faint scent of stale perfume and something else, something unspoken, a profound sorrow that seeped into the very walls. The bathroom door stood ajar, revealing a scene that would soon shock the world, a tragic tableau that marked the end of an era. The tub was full, the water still, reflecting the glint of the room's elegant fixtures, yet holding a stillness that spoke of an unimaginable finality. This was the quiet, devastating conclusion to the life of Whitney Houston, a woman once universally revered as the Voice. Her initial public perception was that of an angelic presence, a gospel-trained powerhouse whose vocal cords were touched by divine grace. She embodied effortless perfection, her smile radiant, her presence commanding, her notes soaring to impossible heights. She was the pop princess, the R&B queen, the undisputed chanteuse whose hits transcended genres and generations. Her image was clean, polished, a stark contrast to the often gritty reality of the music industry. But as the years unfolded, a deeper, more complex, and ultimately tragic narrative began to emerge, one that hinted at the immense pressure, the personal struggles, and the profound vulnerability hidden beneath that flawless exterior. The mystery surrounding Whitney Houston was not in her talent, which was undeniable, but in the paradox of her fall. How could someone so blessed, so universally beloved, descend into such public struggles? How could a voice that soared with such purity eventually become hoarse, strained, a mere shadow of its former glory? The camera would have lingered on the quiet luxury of that hotel suite, the stark contrast between the glittering world she inhabited and the profound solitude of her final moments. It would have shown the scattered personal effects, the subtle disarray that hinted at a life lived intensely, perhaps chaotically, behind closed doors. For decades, the world had been captivated by her voice, hypnotized by her beauty, and inspired by her triumphs. Yet the story beneath the headlines, the struggles waged in private, often remained just out of reach, obscured by the very brilliance that defined her. The stage was now set, not for another soaring performance, but for a journey into a deeper, perhaps more sorrowful narrative. It was a story that would unravel the threads of a life woven with extraordinary talent, immense pressure, tumultuous love, and an unyielding battle with inner demons. The bathtub, a symbol of cleansing, became instead a silent witness to a final, tragic surrender. And this was not merely the end of a pop star's life. It was the poignant, devastating conclusion to the story of a woman whose voice had uplifted millions, yet who ultimately could not save herself. And as the realization of her passing began to ripple outwards, the world braced itself for the heartbreaking truth behind the legend of Whitney Houston. Whitney Elizabeth Houston was born on August 9, 1963, in Newark, New Jersey, a vibrant city with a rich musical heritage, particularly in gospel and soul. Her birth came into a family steeped in the very fabric of American music, almost predestining her extraordinary path. Her mother, Cissy Houston, was a formidable gospel and soul singer in her own right, a Grammy-winning artist who had sung backup for legends like Elvis Presley and Aretha Franklin. Her father, John Russell Houston Jr., was an executive and former military serviceman who later managed some of Whitney's early business affairs. The family roots were deep in the gospel tradition. Her cousin was the legendary Dionne Warwick, and her godmother was the Queen of Soul herself, Aretha Franklin. This lineage was not merely a heritage, it was an education, an immersion in the techniques, power, and spiritual depth of vocal artistry. Whitney grew up in a household where music was not just a pastime but a way of life, a form of expression, and a source of profound spiritual connection. The socio-economic environment of her youth, while not overtly impoverished, was that of a middle-class African-American family in the often turbulent urban landscape of Newark. The challenges of racism and social inequality were a subtle but constant backdrop, even as her family found solace and strength in their community and their faith. Whitney, even as a small child, exhibited unique traits. She was described as exceptionally beautiful, with a striking presence, but also as a quiet, somewhat introverted girl. Yet when she opened her mouth to sing, a transformation occurred. Her early talents were undeniable, her voice possessing a purity and power that astonished those who heard it. She began singing in the New Hope Baptist Church choir in Newark at a very young age, following in her mother's footsteps. This church was her initial stage, her early vocal training ground, where she learned breath control, phrasing, and the emotional resonance that would define her career. There were no ambiguities about her origins. Her musical lineage was clear, a gift passed down through generations. This heritage, while a blessing, also brought with it a tremendous weight of expectation. She was a natural, born with an instrument that seemed almost divine. Her early motivations were deeply rooted in her faith and her desire to emulate her mother. She sang not just for performance, but as a form of worship, an expression of soul. The state of the industry in the late 1970s and early 1980s was shifting, moving away from disco and embracing a more polished, pop-friendly R&B sound. Whitney, with her pristine vocals and stunning looks, was perfectly positioned to capitalize on this evolution. Her initial hurdles were not a lack of talent, but rather finding the right direction and the right mentor to harness her immense potential. She spent her teenage years singing backup for her mother, performing in local clubs, and even dabbling in modeling, appearing in magazines like 17. These experiences provided invaluable exposure to the professional world, but it was not until the early 1980s that her true path became clear. Legend has it that Clive Davis, the shrewd and visionary head of Arista Records, saw her performing with her mother at a New York nightclub and was immediately captivated. He recognized not just a voice, but a star, someone with the crossover appeal to transcend racial and genre boundaries. He offered her a record deal in 1983, a pivotal moment that marked her formal entry into the professional music industry. Her early years were spent refining her craft, but it was Davis who saw the global superstar within the talented Newark girl, setting the stage for a journey that would redefine pop music. The journey to global fame for Whitney Houston was a carefully orchestrated ascent, but one that presented its own unique set of obstacles, even for someone blessed with such extraordinary talent. After signing with Arista Records in 1983, Whitney embarked on a period of meticulous preparation. Unlike many artists who honed their craft in the grueling club circuit, Whitney's introduction to the mainstream was meticulously polished under the guidance of Clive Davis. This meant extensive vocal coaching, careful song selection, and a deliberate cultivation of her image as a clean-cut, accessible pop star. Her debut album, Whitney Houston, released in February 1985, was not an instant explosion, but a slow-burning phenomenon. Initial hurdles included breaking through the competitive landscape of 1980s pop music, where established stars like Michael Jackson and Madonna reigned supreme. Some critics initially dismissed her as too pop and not black enough for R&B audiences, while others questioned her authenticity for not writing her own songs. These early criticisms were a strange form of discrimination, placing her in a precarious position between genres and expectations. Yet Whitney persevered, driven by a quiet determination and an unwavering belief in her voice. Her relentless efforts were channeled into tireless promotion, countless interviews, and captivating live performances. She delivered every note with precision and passion, proving her vocal prowess to anyone who would listen. Pivotal early roles included her stunning performances on television shows like The Tonight Show and Soul Train, where her undeniable talent truly shone. Breakthrough moments began to materialize as singles like You Give Good Love started climbing the charts, followed by Saving All My Love for You, which became her first #1 hit. But it was How Will I Know, with its vibrant music video that showcased her youthful exuberance, that cemented her crossover appeal and truly began her ascent. The public and critical reception quickly became overwhelmingly positive. By 1986, her debut album had topped the charts and sold over 13 million copies, a record for a debut album by a female artist. She garnered her first Grammy Award for Saving All My Love for You. Critics universally lauded her vocal talent, hailing her as one of the most remarkable voices of her generation. And she was praised for her impeccable control, her emotional delivery, and her ability to effortlessly bridge pop and R&B. She was no longer just Cissy Houston's daughter or Dionne Warwick's cousin. She was Whitney Houston, a star in her own right. Anecdotes from this period highlight her blossoming confidence and her natural stage presence. During early concerts, she would often start shy, but as the music swelled, she would unleash her full vocal power, captivating audiences with her soaring runs and sustained notes. Producers spoke of her one-take wonders in the studio, her uncanny ability to deliver a perfect vocal performance with minimal effort, a testament to her natural gift. She quickly became known for her professionalism and her unwavering dedication to her craft. The impact of her rising fame on her personal life and family was profound and immediate. The family's financial status shifted dramatically, from comfortable to extraordinarily wealthy. Whitney bought homes for her family, showering them with gifts, a fulfillment of her desire to provide for those she loved. But with this immense fame came the inevitable loss of privacy. She became a global commodity, her life meticulously documented by the press. The quiet, introverted girl from Newark was now a public figure, constantly scrutinized, admired, and occasionally criticized. Her relationships with family members, particularly her mother, became more complex as Cissy transitioned from mentor to watchful guardian over her superstar daughter. The pressures of fame, while bringing unimaginable success, also subtly began to erode the foundations of the stable life she had known, setting the stage for the profound personal changes that would follow. The world was now her stage, but the lights were blinding and the expectations immense. Whitney Houston's romantic entanglements, particularly her tumultuous marriage to Bobby Brown, became a central and often controversial narrative in her life, overshadowing her musical brilliance and fueling relentless tabloid fodder. Her relationships were not just private affairs, they were played out under the harsh glare of public scrutiny, often impacting her reputation and career trajectory. Her most significant and widely publicized relationship was with Bobby Brown, the R&B singer and former New Edition member. Their romance began in the late 1980s, culminating in their marriage on July 18, 1992. On the surface, it seemed like a pop prince and princess union, but their dynamic was explosive, fueled by intense passion, conflicting personalities, and the pressures of two massive celebrity egos. Whitney, the pristine pop diva, and Bobby, the bad boy of R&B, were an unlikely match. Their relationship was characterized by deep love, volatile arguments, alleged infidelity, and, tragically, a descent into drug use. Whitney often described their connection as an undeniable force. "He was my drug," she famously stated in an interview with Oprah Winfrey, acknowledging the powerful, almost addictive bond they shared. Their marriage quickly became a constant source of tabloid sensationalism. Stories of domestic disputes, public altercations, and drug use filled gossip columns and news broadcasts. The societal context of their entanglement was that of an era increasingly fascinated by celebrity scandal, where privacy was a luxury rarely afforded to stars of their magnitude. The media dissection of their marriage, particularly Whitney's role in it, was often brutal. She was frequently criticized for staying with Bobby, seen by many as sacrificing her image and career for a problematic relationship. This narrative often ignored the complexities of their bond, the deep love they professed, and the shared struggles they faced behind closed doors. The emotional toll of this relationship on Whitney was immense and undeniable. What began as a passionate love affair descended into a cycle of codependency and chaos. Her pristine image began to crack under the weight of the controversies. Public appearances became erratic, her voice sometimes showed strain, and her physical appearance occasionally hinted at the internal battles she was fighting. She defended Bobby fiercely, often stating that he was her safe place, the only person who truly understood her. Yet, the relationship was also a catalyst for some of her darkest moments, pulling her deeper into a world of substance abuse that would ultimately unravel her life. Beyond Bobby Brown, Whitney had other significant relationships, though none reached the same level of public notoriety or lasted as long. Early in her career, she was reportedly involved with Robin Crawford, her best friend and creative director. While never publicly confirmed as a romantic relationship by Whitney, Crawford later detailed an intimate bond, suggesting it was Whitney's first true love. The racial and social climate of the 1980s, particularly for a burgeoning pop star, made any public acknowledgement of a same-sex relationship virtually impossible. This unspoken aspect of her past, if true, adds another layer of complexity to her romantic life, hinting at suppressed desires and the immense pressure to conform to industry expectations. Whitney also reportedly had a brief relationship with Eddie Murphy in the late 1980s. This liaison was largely kept private, a fleeting moment of connection before her more public entanglement with Bobby Brown. These romantic chapters, whether publicly scandalous or quietly concealed, underscore the profound challenges Whitney faced in finding genuine connection and love amidst the blinding glare of superstardom. Her heartbreaks, her passions, and her attempts to find solace in romantic bonds were constantly scrutinized, twisted, and often misunderstood, painting a vivid picture of a woman striving for normalcy in an extraordinary world. The zenith of Whitney Houston's career was a breathtaking ascent that transformed her from a gifted gospel singer into an unparalleled global icon, defining an era with her extraordinary voice and commanding presence. This period, roughly spanning from her debut in 1985 through the mid-1990s, showcased her as the Voice, a title earned through sheer vocal power, impeccable control, and an emotive delivery that transcended language barriers. Her most iconic roles were as a pop and R&B powerhouse, a vocalist capable of delivering both soaring ballads and energetic dance tracks with equal mastery. Her groundbreaking achievements began with her self-titled debut album, Whitney Houston, 1985, which became the best-selling debut album by a female artist at the time, selling over 25 million copies worldwide. It spawned 3 consecutive #1 singles, including Saving All My Love for You, How Will I Know, and Greatest Love of All. This success was quickly followed by Whitney, 1987, which became the first album by a female artist to debut at #1 on the Billboard 200, further solidifying her dominance. Moments of profound public adoration were plentiful. Her performance of the Star-Spangled Banner at Super Bowl 45 in 1991 during the Gulf War was not just a rendition of the national anthem. It was a deeply emotional, powerful declaration of national unity and vocal prowess that became legendary. It transcended the sporting event, released as a single, and became a top 20 hit, cementing her as an American treasure. Another monumental achievement was her starring role in the film The Bodyguard, 1992. The movie itself was a box office hit, but its soundtrack became a global phenomenon, selling over 45 million copies worldwide, making it the best-selling soundtrack album of all time. It featured her iconic rendition of Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You, a song that soared to unprecedented heights, topping charts for a record-breaking 14 weeks and becoming her signature anthem. This track showcased the full range and power of her voice, cementing her status as an artist who could deliver emotional depth with unparalleled technical skill. The public persona Whitney projected during her peak was one of pristine elegance, wholesome beauty, and undeniable grace. She was America's pop princess, a role carefully cultivated by Clive Davis to appeal to a broad, crossover audience. Her smile was radiant, her demeanor poised, and her fashion choices sophisticated. She appeared effortless, almost ethereal, a beacon of perfection in a sometimes gritty industry. Yet behind this flawless exterior, there was always a glimpse of the soulful, gospel-trained singer from Newark, a quiet strength that resonated deeply with her audience. She projected a dignified confidence, a woman completely in command of her extraordinary gift. Vivid scenes of Whitney at work during this period would include her in the recording studio, her voice filling the room with astonishing power, delivering perfect takes with minimal effort. Producers and engineers often spoke of her natural ability, her innate musicality. In concert, she was a captivating presence, moving with a fluid grace, her hand gestures punctuating her soaring vocals. She would command the stage, connecting with her audience through pure emotion, often bringing entire arenas to tears with the raw power of her ballads. Interacting with fans, she was warm and gracious, though the sheer scale of her fame meant her interactions were often brief. Glimpses of her approachable nature filtered through layers of security. Her cultural impact during her peak was immense and transformative. Whitney Houston broke racial barriers, not just on MTV, but across mainstream pop radio, proving that a Black female artist could achieve universal cross-cultural appeal without compromising her R&B roots. She influenced a generation of vocalists, setting a new standard for vocal performance, inspiring countless aspiring singers with her technical brilliance and emotional depth. She represented a sophisticated, empowering femininity, a figure of strength and grace who commanded respect. Her influence rippled through fashion, inspiring elegant and classic styles. She was not just a pop star, she was a global phenomenon, a unifying force whose voice spoke to the human condition, transcending language and culture. Every soaring note, every iconic performance, every record-breaking achievement during this period illustrated her peak, cementing her legacy as one of the greatest vocalists of all time, a true force of nature whose voice touched the very soul of the world. Beneath the dazzling facade of global superstardom, Whitney Houston's secret personal life was a landscape fraught with profound inner conflicts, vulnerabilities, and personal struggles that were often fiercely guarded, yet increasingly difficult to conceal. Despite her angelic voice and pristine public image, Whitney battled a deep-seated identity crisis, struggling to reconcile the America's sweetheart persona with her true self, a woman who often felt caught between conflicting expectations and her own desires. She was the good girl who loved the bad boy, the gospel singer who embraced pop, creating a tension that subtly pulled at the seams of her public image. Her loneliness was profound, a paradox of immense fame. Surrounded by millions of adoring fans, she often felt isolated, trapped by the gilded cage of celebrity. She yearned for normalcy, for genuine connection that wasn't filtered through the lens of her stardom. This isolation was exacerbated by her marriage to Bobby Brown, which, while deeply passionate, also became a world unto itself, often isolating her from former friends and colleagues who disapproved of their lifestyle. She frequently expressed a desire to escape the pressures, to just be Nippy, her childhood nickname, the ordinary girl from Newark, free from the constant scrutiny. Her most significant and devastating personal struggle was her battle with substance addiction. What began as recreational use, reportedly alongside Bobby Brown, spiraled into a full-blown dependency on cocaine and other drugs. This was her deepest secret, a shadow that silently consumed her, eroding her physical and mental health. Her addiction led to erratic behavior, missed performances, and a noticeable decline in her vocal prowess, which, for a singer of her caliber, was a public and heartbreaking sign of her internal turmoil. The pressures of fame, the relentless touring, and the emotional complexities of her marriage undoubtedly contributed to this self-medication, a desperate attempt to cope with the overwhelming demands of her life. She often hid the extent of her use from even her closest confidants, denying the severity of her problem for years. Family issues also played a complex role. While her mother, Sissy, remained a constant source of support and tough love, the family, accustomed to her financial generosity, sometimes inadvertently contributed to her enabling environment. There were also whispers of internal family conflicts, jealousies, and attempts to manage her burgeoning wealth, all of which added to her stress. The tragic loss of her father, John Houston, in 2003, after a lengthy illness, was a devastating blow, compounding her grief and sense of vulnerability. He had been her manager, a complex figure who balanced protective instincts with demanding expectations, and his absence left a void. Her closest private relationships were few but critical. Her daughter, Bobby Christina Brown, was the light of her life, a source of immense joy and unconditional love. Whitney poured all her maternal devotion into Bobby Christina, often expressing a fierce protective instinct for her child. Her longtime best friend and creative director, Robin Crawford, also provided a crucial anchor, a confidant who had known Whitney since her teenage years, before fame had intervened. Robin was a grounding force, a steady presence who often attempted to steer Whitney away from destructive paths. However, as Whitney's addiction deepened, even these vital relationships became strained, caught in the undertow of her struggles. Whitney often used introspection, particularly in her later years, to voice her pain, famously telling Oprah Winfrey, "The biggest devil is me. I'm either my best friend or my worst enemy." These hidden aspects of her life, the profound loneliness, the gnawing insecurity, and the relentless grip of addiction, paint a far more poignant and human picture than the glorious image of The Voice suggested, revealing a fragile soul battling for survival in the most public of arenas. The final decade of Whitney Houston's life was a public and painful decline, a tragic unraveling of a legendary career and a deeply troubled personal life. The once pristine image of America's sweetheart began to fracture, replaced by a devastating narrative of addiction, financial woes, and diminishing artistic returns. Her career suffered immense setbacks. Once a guaranteed hitmaker, her albums struggled to reach the same heights, and her vocal instrument, once her superpower, showed increasing signs of strain, becoming raspy, losing its signature clarity and power. The events leading to her decline were a combination of relentless personal tragedies and the escalating grip of her substance abuse. Her tumultuous marriage to Bobby Brown became a public spectacle, marked by domestic disputes, arrests, and highly publicized drug use. This chaotic lifestyle took a severe toll on her health, both physical and mental. Her appearance visibly deteriorated, her once radiant beauty marred by the harsh realities of addiction. She became increasingly thin, her eyes often vacant, a stark contrast to the vibrant Whitney of the 1980s. The profound impact on her closest confidants was devastating. Her mother, Sissy, made desperate attempts to intervene, famously staging interventions and expressing her heartbreak in interviews. Her daughter, Bobby Christina, witnessed her mother's struggles firsthand, a trauma that would profoundly affect her own life. Friends and colleagues watched helplessly as The Voice spiraled, a tragic shadow of her former self. Career-wise, the decline was evident in her live performances. Once a flawless vocalist, her concerts became inconsistent, marked by missed notes, forgotten lyrics, and a diminished stage presence. Her 2001 appearance on a Michael Jackson tribute concert, where she appeared alarmingly thin and frail, shocked the world and ignited widespread concern about her health. Her highly anticipated 2009 comeback album, I Look to You, offered a glimpse of her enduring spirit, but it was overshadowed by renewed struggles and a widely panned European tour in 2010, where her voice faltered and her stamina waned, leading to walkouts and harsh critical reviews. It was a heartbreaking sight for fans who remembered her in her prime. The specific circumstances of her final crisis built with a quiet, yet terrifying, inevitability. In the days leading up to the 2012 Grammy Awards, Whitney was staying at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, the same hotel where she was scheduled to perform at a pre-Grammy party hosted by Clive Davis. She had been seen behaving erratically, appearing disoriented and agitated. Her entourage, including family members and security, reportedly attempted to manage her, but the addiction had a relentless grip. The exact sequence of events leading to her final moments remains a chilling narrative. On February 11, 2012, hours before the party, Whitney was found unconscious, face down in the bathtub of her hotel suite, room 434. Her assistant discovered her, and frantic attempts were made to revive her. Paramedics arrived swiftly, but it was too late. The scene was one of grim finality. There were no last words, no poignant goodbyes, only the cold, still water and the devastating realization that the magnificent voice had been silenced forever. She was pronounced dead at the scene at 3:55 p.m. PST. The immediate cause of death was later determined to be accidental drowning, with contributing factors including heart disease and cocaine use. The revelation of cocaine in her system confirmed the addiction that had haunted her for so long, bringing a tragic, heartbreaking end to a life that had soared to unimaginable heights only to crash in a quiet hotel bathroom, a profoundly sorrowful climax to the story of a fallen angel. The news of Whitney Houston's death on February 11, 2012, sent a tremor across the globe, an electric shockwave of grief and disbelief that reverberated through every corner of the entertainment industry and beyond. The immediate reaction was one of stunned silence, quickly followed by an outpouring of raw emotion. Social media platforms, nascent by today's standards, exploded with tributes, memories, and collective lamentations. Television networks broke into regular programming, flashing breaking news banners, announcing the unthinkable. The voice had been silenced. Artists, from veterans who had known her for decades to young stars she had inspired, expressed profound sorrow, many recalling her as a mentor, an inspiration, or simply as the standard by which all vocalists would forever be measured. Mariah Carey simply tweeted, "Heartbroken and in tears over the shocking death of my friend, the incomparable Ms. Whitney Houston." Her funeral service, held on February 18, 2012, at the New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, New Jersey, the very church where she had first lent her angelic voice to the choir, was a deeply emotional and profoundly public affair. While it was not open to the general public, it was broadcast live to millions worldwide, transforming a private moment of grief into a global act of mourning. The atmosphere inside the church was heavy with sorrow, yet punctuated by moments of joyous celebration of her life and music. Notable attendees included Oprah Winfrey, Beyoncé, Jay-Z, Stevie Wonder, Alicia Keys, Tyler Perry, and her godmother, Aretha Franklin, though Franklin was too ill to perform as planned. Eulogies were delivered by her mother, Cissy Houston, who spoke of her daughter's unwavering spirit, and by Clive Davis, who recounted their storied professional relationship with poignant reverence. Kevin Costner, her co-star from The Bodyguard, delivered a deeply personal and moving eulogy, sharing anecdotes of her vulnerability and immense talent, urging the world to remember her beauty and her gift. "I will always love you," he concluded, his voice breaking, a direct reference to her iconic song. Stevie Wonder performed a medley of his songs, incorporating a powerful tribute to Whitney, filling the church with soul and solace. The casket, draped in white roses, was a stark, heartbreaking symbol of finality. The media coverage was extensive and multifaceted. While celebrating her unmatched vocal talent and her string of record-breaking hits, it also delved into the complexities of her personal struggles, particularly her addiction. This dual narrative became a central theme, exploring the tragic paradox of a woman who had given so much joy to the world, yet found so little peace in her own life. Tabloid headlines, while initially respectful, quickly pivoted to speculation about the cause of death and the dark undertones of her final years. The grief of her family, particularly her daughter, Bobby Christina, was heartbreakingly visible, a profound personal loss playing out on the global stage. The wider public mourning manifested in impromptu sing-alongs, social media tributes, and a renewed appreciation for her timeless music. Her death, sudden and shocking, solidified her place not just as a music legend, but as a cautionary tale, a powerful reminder of the devastating toll of unchecked addiction and the immense pressures of superstardom. The atmosphere of loss was palpable, a somber blanket draped over a world that had loved the voice and now grieved its silencing. Whitney Houston's long-term legacy is not simply about sales figures or chart positions. It is a profound, indelible mark on the landscape of popular music and global consciousness. She was and remains the voice, setting an almost impossibly high bar for vocalists worldwide. Her technique, her range, her ability to effortlessly transition between power and tenderness continues to be studied and revered. She reshaped the industry by demonstrating the unparalleled commercial power of a Black female artist with crossover appeal, breaking down racial barriers in a way few before her had. She proved that a singer could dominate pop, R&B, and even film, influencing a generation of vocalists from Mariah Carey and Christina Aguilera to Beyoncé. Every major female vocalist who emerged after her was inevitably compared to Whitney. Her story contributes to powerful cultural narratives about talent, pressure, and the human cost of fame. She was the aspirational figure, the embodiment of the American dream realized through sheer talent. Yet her decline served as a stark cautionary tale. She influenced not just music, but fashion, popular culture, and even the way music videos were conceived and produced. Her performance of the Star-Spangled Banner at the Super Bowl became an iconic cultural moment, cementing her status as a national treasure. Lingering mysteries and unanswered questions often revolve around the complexities of her personal life and the depths of her struggles. The nature of her relationship with Robin Crawford, only fully clarified posthumously by Crawford herself, adds another layer to understanding Whitney's identity and the societal pressures she faced. The exact trajectory of her addiction and the full extent of the enabling environment surrounding her remain subjects of public discussion, attempting to understand how such immense talent could be derailed. There are no grand conspiracies surrounding her death, but rather a lingering sadness about the preventable nature of her tragic end, a testament to the destructive power of addiction. Common misconceptions include the simplistic narrative that her marriage to Bobby Brown was the sole cause of her downfall, overlooking her inherent vulnerabilities, the immense pressures of her demanding career, and the complex nature of addiction itself. While Bobby was a contributing factor, her struggles were multi-layered and deeply personal. Why does her story continue to resonate? Because it is a universal tale of immense promise and tragic loss, of the human struggle against inner demons and the profound impact of love and addiction. She represents the fragility of even the most powerful talents when faced with the darker forces of life. Her story implicitly guides contemporary audiences to profound lessons: the importance of mental health and addiction awareness, the need for genuine support systems for those in the public eye, and the understanding that even the brightest stars can fall. Her legacy is not dimmed by her struggles, but made more poignant by them, highlighting the human behind the divine voice. She reminds us that beneath the glitter and the glory, there was a deeply human soul, longing for peace. The final notes of "I Will Always Love You" echo through the vast silent hall, a haunting, eternal melody. Whitney Elizabeth Houston, the voice that soared like an angel and touched the very soul of the world, has found her quiet rest. Her life was a magnificent, heartbreaking symphony, a testament to the intoxicating power of unparalleled talent and the crushing weight of a dream made too real. She emerged from a sacred tradition, destined for secular glory, a queen crowned by her own breathtaking gift, only to find the gilded cage of fame a lonely, treacherous place. Her journey was a brilliant, tragic arc, a narrative of triumph and turmoil, of love found and lost, of battles waged in secret and sorrow laid bare. She gave us joy, inspiration, and moments of pure, unadulterated vocal magic. Yet, behind the radiant smile lay the profound loneliness of an icon, and beneath the soaring notes, the quiet struggle of a soul fighting to find its way home. As the spotlight dims and the silence deepens, we are left not with an absence, but with a vibrant presence, an enduring legacy. Her voice, forever preserved in its pristine glory, continues to uplift and inspire, a powerful echo of the magnificent spirit it once embodied. What enduring truth does her story whisper across the years? Perhaps it is this: that even the most heavenly voices are profoundly, beautifully human, capable of both immense strength and heartbreaking vulnerability. And that true artistry, born from the depths of the soul, continues to resonate long after the final note has faded, forever reminding us of the indelible magic of Whitney.